All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. It is July 16th. We've got CPI and PPI now behind us. NQ failed breakout yesterday. Failed breakout. We were looking for any sort of action above the 23 100 higher time frame pivot throughout the day. That actually held as support quite nicely on a handful of different attempts. You'll remember this action down through here on the live stream, and then we also had the long right through here around 11 a.m. Also on the live stream, you can see two more tests into that area later in the afternoon. But most notably about yesterday's action is that price just continued to step lower. There's your session high. So it really failed to even retest the opening print and make a new high of day following all these bounces, all these tests of the key higher time frame pivot. Then we get into the close and you have a pretty large end of day sell there once support finally fails, once that pivot finally fails to hold. Now, interestingly enough, let me clear these drawings off. We actually have a pretty solid continuation move during the overnight session. And where does NQ go? It comes right back into last week's volume point of control, which is also the near term structure volume point of control right there. What is that? 940, 935 area. So all that tells us that all the volume from this current structure is pretty much concentrated right in this area right here, 22 935. That's also last week's volume point of control. Now typically that volume point of control can serve as a reference point, can serve as support or resistance, and that's exactly what we see during the overnight session there with the bounce. Now, in this morning, in the pre-market prep notes before PPI, what I had mentioned was one of the main watches for today was to see whether buyers could continue this bounce from what time is that? 2 a.m. and give us acceptance above 23K and then a retest into 23 100. That move is pretty much completed following PPI, which is unfortunate because I'd rather be involved down here near 23K rather than up here at 23 100 if I'm looking for longs. So for this morning now, what I'm going to be looking at about 8 minutes till the open is how price again continues to respond to this area of near-term resistance. 23 100, pretty critical higher time frame pivot there, as we can see looking at this 2-hour chart. So sellers, of course, are going to be interested in defending this point. You want to look for potential higher time frame weakness at this 23 100. If they are successful in that, like you see some shooting star up here, or maybe a higher time frame doji, and then price starts to roll over, be watching for that 23K again. Now, ideally, in alignment with what is a much higher time frame trend higher, buyers want to see that push up above 23 100. We'll be testing this week's volume point of control. And then this area of resistance up here, 23 200. So main pivot on watch here for the regular session remains 23 100. Very similar to what we discussed yesterday. However, now price is on the opposite side of that 23 100. So that is the focus this morning, 23 100. It's your main watch. Post PPI, NQ is into about 23,075. We did have again the classic post data retracement right into the fib buy zone for some long setups. That was pretty nice. I took a little nibble of that this morning. Not bad. For the tier one data, that can usually be a decent play. And now we have the overnight high right there at 85. Big high volume node kind of building out here, right in the 75 area. Let's take a look at ES. We got a few minutes. So ES yesterday, we had talked about it during yesterday's stream, but the gap was not nearly as significant. And then it was pretty clear that ES was putting in that upthrust while NQ was still attempting to hold that breakout point. So definitely some major divergence between ES and NQ yesterday. Once that all-time high failed on ES, that previous high right through here, about 63.33, you really don't want to be looking for longs anymore, at least for that session. That's going to be a time to be focusing on shorts because, again, here's your higher time frame structure, right? And this is pretty typical up thrust. Now, price has actually hit the complete target for that up thrust, which is near term range low. And it, of course, is bouncing now. So if you're trading ES, you're going to want to look at 62.90, the structure volume point of control right through here, 63.05, and then 63.13. But buyers are going to be targeting, again, near term range high. It's just a range. It's just your sideways range, higher time frame range. Pretty basic stuff there. About 3.5 minutes till the open. Economic data today, we do have Fed's beige book at 2 p.m. Typically, that is going to be not a market moving event, but always worth keeping an eye on. That time, 2 p.m. Tomorrow we have Netflix after the close. Netflix can sometimes be a market mover, especially for NASDAQ. Earning season is here. Earning season is here. Hopefully that means we'll get a little bit more volatility, a little bit more movement with some of the mega cap names reporting. Saw the impact that Nvidia can have on the market yesterday with that major ES and NQ divergence. What's up, Ray? Thank you, sir. Just a little scalp there. About 90 seconds till the open. Main focus 23,100. Session volume point of control still way down here at 23K. See if that shifts. You have a high volume node building out. Oh, you can't see it. High volume node right through here. Post PPI. Tricky spot for the open. Not my favorite spot here for the regular open personally. 30 seconds. Let's see. Let me take a look at that prior day structure as well. So you see that gap fill closure into the close yesterday. Remember, yesterday we talked about the gap and crap. If you're in yesterday's live stream, opening 5-minute bar is bearish. Price never gets above the opening print. It was a decent range for most of the day, actually, but then just cracks lower into the close. There's your regular open. Very slight gap higher, still in the prior day's range. Just shy of that 23,100 pivot. There's your overnight high. Overnight high just swept. Sweeper. Sweeper, sweeper. Sellers stepping in. Yeah, there's your up thrust, Dom. Up thrust with that higher time frame pivot right up above. If I shorted, probably would have been all over that, but I'm on team long only. Got to stay loyal. Good volume off the open. NQ getting into prior day low. That's your first reference point here. If prior day low, prior day close, and VWAP all in the same area. I think it was all a volume void, isn't it? Yeah, big volume void right here. That's why it filled so fast. It's the alligator mouth right there. There's your eyeball. Price tends to fill these voids pretty quickly. Gator indicator. Has a nice ring to it. Gator indicator. ES retesting overnight high. A little more divergence between these two. NQ new low of day. Here's your prior day low. Small overnight gap has been filled. Got VWAP right through there. So beneath this area fails. You've got the 23K level of interest and then session volume point of control still right through there. Remember, 23K is in the middle of that near-term range. Right in the middle. There's your true test of prior day low. There's a decent little push there. Nice little bounce. Where you'd expect it to, if you ask me anyway. It's your prior day low spring setup. You have VWAP right through there. Still have this pre 10 a.m. weakness though, so not going to overstay my welcome in that one. Not going to stay married to that idea. NQ into the lows here. That's why you trail. That is why you trail. Idea right there was for the prior day low spring. You have the benefit of the small gap being filled and then VWAP as well. What I don't like about the idea is higher time frame pivot rejection. Not really helping our case here. And then pre 10 a.m. directional weakness. Get that one in the trade log. Boom. There we go. Buyers like that area again. Another little spring right there. Intraday spring this time. No re-entry for me. Grab 15 points there, right? Yeah, same. It's about 15. It's a little starter pack. Remember we talked about the volume void earlier. Now it's starting to fill in. How's the bot? Need to check. Bot should be chilling. Bot caught a pre-market long. NQ back into the lows. See these lows cracking 23K trade. Yeah, bot's green on the week so far. So far. Very slight new low of day right there. Session volume point of control shifted higher. Chrissy with the RTH VWAP. Wow. The VWAP sandwich. NQ almost actually, yeah, that's a true test of your 23K right there, and right back right above that prior day low. What time is it? All right, 15 minutes into the sesh, just about. So far, intraday series of lower highs. Let's get an update on our higher time frame. Look at that 2-hour candle. So far tested that key higher time frame pivot right near the 23,100 and rejected. As of right now, just kind of watching the action near prior day low and the 23K level of interest. Like to see how this 5 minute develops. 23K fails, more than likely looking at that overnight low as the target down into 930. Volume surprisingly light here, below average. There's NQ right back into the lows. Just continues to step lower. There's your next 15-minute bar starting up. Opening 15-minute bar quite bearish. Staying patient. Staying patient. ES, pretty similar structure, a little up thrust there at the overnight high. Just in no man's land now for ES. Yeah, overnight high up thrust right there. Probably the best trade of the morning so far. Given the higher time frame pivot just overhead. Right now, just looking at this kind of series of lower highs. If buyers can start to break this 30 area, they have more confirmation that this 23K wants to hold. My preference always to wait till after 10 a.m. But we do have a level of interest right in this area and a series of reference points. So I want to focus on how that action unfolds. See that little blip above cannot show acceptance. Then price action starts to show a bit of choppiness as there's a fight for price here. And back into the lows. Back into the low. What's up, Timmy? Hey, you're back to the everyday streams. Welcome. NQ, new low of day. Here's your true test at 23K. Like I mentioned earlier, if we see some continued action beneath 23K, I'd be looking for that overnight low. Overnight low. Watching NQ here, D-Wall? Yep. I think we all are, sir. Think we all are. Where's that overnight low? Way down there. 930. So pretty much hands off for me now until either post 10 a.m. or overnight low. This is that pre 10 a.m. directional weakness we talk about so frequently. Better volume here. Uptick in volume. NQ into value area low for the extended hour sesh. Personally, not an area I want to set risk against. The buyer's responding there so far. About 7 minutes till 10 a.m. No data. Retest at 23K. Sellers right there. New low of day. New low of day. No surprise. Would not mind seeing 10 a.m. right near that overnight low, 22,900 area. See, we got about 4 minutes. A little consolidation here near that value area low, 22,980. Pretty decent volume here. It's good to see. NQ back into the lows. Maybe a new low. Yep, there's your new low of day. Pre 10 a.m. directional strength. Textbook example of that today. Textbook. How are we doing on time? We have 90 seconds till 10 a.m. Still a little bit of distance from that overnight low. ES sitting on session lows. All right, here comes 10 a.m. No data. See that next 30-minute bar open up. So here's a visual via regular trading hours. Near term range quite clear. Here's the key higher time frame pivot. Price opens just beneath. You get the test, reject, sellers step in. Now just in no man's land for the most part. You have overnight low somewhere through here. Actually, more like here, but then the 22,900 downside level of interest. And we start to get into near term range low down in those 900s. Higher time frame range. How's our profile looking? Yeah, you probably got a little time before that volume point of control shifts. A little uptick in volume there with the 10 a.m. Action looks better here at 10 a.m. Yeah, I'd like to see a little shift, 1 minute shift ideally before getting involved. Especially in no man's land here. Can't be attempting to grab the low. Personally, anyway. Can't speak for all y'all. So the most recent intraday lower high right through there. Consolidation. No shift yet on the 1 minute. That's not really asking for much either. There's your new low of day. So we watch for overnight low. NQ right back into that little structure there. Need to see either an intraday shift or a true test of that overnight low before I can get involved. See if we get that lower time frame shift right here. Check out that 5 minute. So we start to see some action, some 5 minute action through prior bar high. That would be the first time all session. There it is. Now we might be on the right side of the V. TBD, I have no position. NQ into 23K. Good volume. So 23K stays on watch right now. It's your nearest level of interest. Up and through 23K. Little micro higher low there, the previous structure. Would have liked to see a little closer alignment with the level. Next 15-minute bar closes here in less than a minute. Rejection there at 23K. And look at that 5-minute. Back into that structure, back into that little consolidation. 15-minute closes as a doji, little indecision. Not much to do here right now. We did not see the actual real test of the overnight low. See if that move gets put in right now. How's our profile looking? Probably have volume point of control shift lower here within the next few minutes. Price stays in this area. As of right now, we know that price has rejected the 23,100 higher time frame pivot. You have that pre 10 a.m. directional strength, meaning strength in the direction, obviously not strength in price. So strong directional weakness, if you will. And then an attempted shift here that failed. So now be looking at how this kind of continues to develop and whether price can actually get into this overnight low, potential overnight low spring setup. That starts to be pretty close proximity to near term range low. Remember, this is near term range high. We have higher time frame rejecting near term range high. So, do you want to be super aggressive with longs once your near term range high is being rejected? Probably not. Probably not, right? That's why that first trade I took managed very, very aggressively as far as the trail. And patient since. Patient since. We need some higher time frame help. So if we get some action above 23K with favorable market structure, that'd definitely be worth looking at for an entry. Like to see that volume point of control shift lower. And right back in at 23K. And you see that value area low for the extended session. That's that yellow dotted line right here on the chart holding as support. It's just a reference point. Nothing more. So tight range kind of building out here. 950 by 23K. Definitely looking better here. Let's see. See if there's an entry. 15-minute through prior bar high. NQ into VWAP. VWAPy. Iced water or room temperature? Room temp like Chrissy's IQ. Damn. Chrissy just catching strays right now. Jeez, man. Wow. One for room temp, one for iced. That's what makes a market right there. That is what makes a market. All right, a little consolidation here between 23K and VWAP. How are we looking on the intraday fib? There's your 38% right in this area. Your volume point of control may shift lower. Basically, I have 3 high volume nodes here. Tough spot. Tricky spot right there. So rejection at VWAP. And there's your volume point of control. Finally shifting lower into that structure now. A lot of resistance through here with the 23K level of interest, VWAP, and then your prior day low just above that. ES pretty choppy here. Held the prior day low. Look at that prior day close. Right at, what is that, 77.25 on ES. Let's check in on our friends at RTY. Definitely a little stronger. There's NQ. Back into 23K. Yeah, pretty choppy here. Byproduct of tricky location. We're in the middle of that near term range. Best opportunities in a range are always going to be at the edge points. So I had such a big move right here. That up thrust into the higher time frame pivot. 23K. If we look at the structure though, it's right in the middle. Right here in the middle. Basically considering the range pretty much like this. Personally. When you have that intraday choppiness, it can be helpful to kind of zoom out a little bit. That's why I like to keep my eye on the 5-minute here. All right, so we know 10 a.m. pretty much marked the low with a big hammer. And buyers have shown a fairly consistent series of higher lows since then. I also know that price is bumping into an area where sellers may be interested in defending, namely VWAP prior day low. Here we go. Getting into prior day low. PDL is 19.25. And once it starts to clear all that choppiness, it opens up a little more, right? Get a bit more clarity. The other aspect we were talking about earlier was the 15-minute actually closing green, then the next bar through prior bar high. Now you just have the next bar starting, as well as even the next 30-minute bar. So a lot of the times around those 30-minute candle opens, you can have a little flurry of action. At least in index products. It's a little tip that may help you with positioning. If you're into that, of course. And into the value area high, some intraday structure, fib sell zone, of course, as well. See how this prior day low gets treated, VWAP area. Price can break this 30-35 area. We actually talked about that earlier, about 945. Oh, you get a decent little leg higher there. CL is puking if you trade oil. Down through overnight low. All right, quick poll. Did you follow your rules this morning? A little bit different. We're not focused on outcome today. Did you respect your rules? Yes or no? Duval says Trump time, tight trail. You long, D-Wall? D-Walla? Got the long on there, D-Wall? Nice. Nice work. Nice work. I tried some positioning through there myself. Little tricky. Thankfully started with a partial, took a little heat on that partial. Once price reclaimed 23K, got back in and caught that decent push that aligned with the what is that? The 1030 30-minute candle open. That was a tough one. Not my favorite. The conviction, though, is largely based on higher time frame helping me out. 5-minute, 15-minute, then close proximity to intraday structure, level of interest. Not a big fan of bumping into that prior day low, but that's trading for you. So weight of the evidence game. Weight of the evidence. That's what we get paid to do. At this point, I'd want to see some action up above prior day low. Not going to set risk against this 23K anymore. Want action above prior day low or down into session lows, overnight low area. Trailed 37 points. Do all nice. I got about 30 there. Did take a little heat on that initial entry, but the structure did not break, most notably. So that's what we care about. Let's see what these next 20 minutes or so have in store. Volume's decent. %88 said they followed their rules this morning. 12% said no. Oh, only 8 votes. No one wants to participate in that one. Not a good sign. Usually not a good sign. I got some people like trading rules. What are those? What is that? Trading rules? I never heard of such a thing. Speaking of rules, I did see for the top step traders out there, they added contract limits. So you can block certain contracts from being traded. You can put in a max quantity. And I've mentioned before, to utilize the guardrails. They can be a really really big help. And yes, should you work on developing mental fortitude to do these things on your own? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, when you're taking your payout, the bank does not care if you utilized the bumpers, as I like to call them in bowling. They don't care if you use the bumpers or not. So if the tools can help you get to your end goal of payouts, you should use them. If you want to act like you're David Goggins in your trading journey, then by all means, go ahead. But trading is already challenging enough. So why not use all the advantages that you can? That's how I view it anyway. Chad Till got the best of you, man. Sorry to hear. The choppiness can definitely do that. Main thing after tilt is to make sure that it does not, like, you want to try and stop the bleeding so it doesn't carry over into a second day or a third day even. I've seen that. I've lived that. I've seen that in a bunch of clients as well. It's very common. The demons we fight in trading are way too deep to not use the tools. You have to over exaggerate in order to get going in the right direction. Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, to me it seems like a no-brainer. Definitely get that school of thought that, like, I don't want to place restrictions on myself, but here's the thing, if having no restrictions is not getting you to your desired outcome, then how much longer are you going to keep testing that theory? How many more weeks or months? How many more years? Gibb says, I have a trailing stop on XFA. It honestly saved me and let me trade for another day. I felt the tilt in me after fighting the chop. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like that is the advantage of those lockout features. Keep the account alive for another day. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, 1K down, it's not it's not a far, if you don't have the daily loss limit enabled, it's not a far stretch to having receiving that email about the blown account. Start adding size. I mean, I know that I know that unwind quite well. I've lived that one plenty of times. We all been there. At some point, you definitely do get better at recognizing it in yourself and just saying, "Hey, I know where this path goes. I know where this journey leads." So I do think it gets easier. You just get better at handling it. But in the meantime, it's like a no-brainer to utilize those features. So NQ rejected their prior day low. A lot of choppiness here, not a ton of clarity. I view this as a byproduct of price just being in the middle of the higher time frame range. As always, my preference with a range is action kind of in this upper portion or in this lower portion. You're gonna have the most conviction, or you should have the most conviction on trades in these areas simply because price has already shown that's where the largest asymmetrical returns are. That's why, again, this short off the open is really nice. The up thrust, because price is just bumping into the edge point of that range. Now, where are we? Well, we're in the middle. We're in the middle. So there's not a ton of clarity through here. There's why you see some of that intraday choppiness. you find yourself getting chopped up, it's a byproduct of higher time frame. So if you can recognize where price is from a location perspective on the higher time frames, you can sometimes avoid some of the choppier action. This is like the map. This is like the terrain. Price not currently in a great spot. And that can certainly change throughout the session, of course, but as of right now, it's a little bit tricky. My preference, honestly, is down through here. We start to get into the lower portion of the near term range, that overnight low. I'll definitely look at 22,900 level of interest. Definitely look at. Any days like this used to get me for sure. Yeah. Same. Same. Easy to overdo it in the choppy. Just limited follow through. And then you take a stop, you see price do what you expected, you get frustrated, you enter again. That is a rough cycle. Yeah, not very much great action off the 23K this morning. Don't really want to see overnight low. Yep. Yep. Same page. NQ back in a prior day low here. See how price responds to this. A little intraday resistance point right through there. See how this intraday resistance is going to be treated right here. About 9 minutes till 11 a.m. Okay. We'll test a 30. Rejection there at 30. I want to see the next 6 minutes into 11 a.m. Okay, a little look above there. Oh, we got some news. Oh, wow, 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 wow. We got some news. Look at that. Huge volume hitting. NQ coming into the lows. I'm happy I was not in a position. Wow. That was something right there. Largest volume of the session. Nice bounce there. No entry. No break of the structure. She found a bounce off the lows. It's pretty nice. I was a hair too slow with it. No entry through there. Still just with my second trade around the 23K for this post 10 a.m. session, post 10 a.m. action. Oh yeah, mental stop on something like that. No, 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 no. No, sir. Not happening. You always got to have that hard stop. Even if you want to leave a little bit of a buffer, you need like an insurance policy stop. That's the way I think about it. So NQ, a little rejection there near 23K. We got into 11 a.m. NQ back near the lows. Let's see. Can we get that overnight low? Dom, you still here? Overnight low, maybe right around the corner. What was the news anyway? Anyone know? Let me check the feeds. Oh, thanks, Dave. Okay, pal. Pal news. Back in at 23K. There's 11 a.m. as well. Basically, I have a 70-point intraday range on the session here. All right. Intraday range continues. I'm going to keep an eye on these lows down here as well as overnight low. And then, of course, the intraday resistance up here at 30, 23,030. Ideal scenario for me would be a test into overnight low, like we've mentioned a few times here. But that was a wrap. That's a wrap for me. I'm going to call it. Hope you guys had a good morning. We've got Beige Book at 2 p.m. We'll keep it going in the Traders Think Tank today, all throughout the day. Tomorrow we have that Netflix earnings, should be pretty interesting. Potential NQ mover. NQ pretty choppy here near the 23K. So don't want to overdo it at this point. Remember, price is in the middle of a higher time frame range. For me, that's not the best location to be getting involved. So patience is going to be key for late morning. All right, folks. Thanks for your time today. We will see you tomorrow. Take care.